question on the mind of many people right now. Microsoft AI is actually the division of Microsoft that is pushing forward on these products like Copilot and their interoperability across Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365 applications, but then also things like Surface and the devices that are there. So Copilot itself is a product grouping because there's actually many different Copilots. And really what these are, they're applications that allow you to work directly with LLMs, which are the large language models that then are built on data that's available in the public internet to then give you feedback through a text interface and answer questions and really answer prompts. So this Copilot service is built in across multiple different Microsoft applications like Dynamics 365 for finance, Dynamics 365 Business Central, Dynamics 365 Customer Relationship Management, as well as the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is really the most well-known use case of Copilot that integrates it directly with all of the Microsoft 365 productivity applications like Teams, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, you name it. So really that's the general framework of Microsoft Copilot. The way that these applications work is that Microsoft Copilot operates really as a prompt intaking application, and then it drops this data into a kind of a pre-prompt area where additional context is added to your question. So let's say I'm in a Word document and I ask Microsoft 365 Copilot to generate a poem that was written by, seems it's written by Edgar Allan Poe. So essentially what that will do is it will drop into this Copilot pre-prompt service that will add additional context, such as who am I as a user? When did I submit this response? Lots of additional metadata that's really required to give you a contextualized answer. And so it builds then a more advanced prompt that gets sent to the actual large language model to then have the LLM determine how it should respond to that. And then from there, you're actually given the feedback from the LLM that is running essentially on a GPT engine to be able to decide, what it should give you in a response. So the concept of an LLM is a much larger discussion, but essentially a large language model that hosts all the information that's publicly accessible on the internet, as well as the context that you're operating in currently within your Microsoft applications. So all of these things together and all of these services are really what's rendering this Microsoft Copilot experience for you. That's correct, but really it's the same engine, which is this GPT large language model that's being used. But the difference is that there are different Copilots, but these are really different applications. They're different layers to the Copilot service, if you will. And each one has an ability to add additional context to it before passing this prompt onto the large language model to then get a response. So for example, the way that I'm working inside of Excel, there's going to be different levels of context required that are going to need to get sent to the LLM for it to give me an accurate response. Or when I'm operating, in Outlook, there's different layers of context that it needs to look at my previous emails in order to understand what that context is of what I'm asking to give me the best response. So that's like Microsoft 365 Copilot. But then D365 Copilot is built at each of the different applications to be able to provide that additional context. For example, Dynamics 365 Copilot for Sales, what's used in the CRM tool, it provides context around what are the open opportunities that I have, what are some of the contacts that were recently made, and it adds that context to the prompt that then gets sent to the LLM to give you a more accurate response. So it's a more useful thing than just using, ChatGPT on the open internet, for example. Yeah, so Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot is available if you have an enterprise E3 or an E5 license. So that's already added in your subscription. But let's say that you don't have E3 or E5 and you want to get access to the tooling, you can get a Copilot Pro license. And this is just $20 a month. That'll be enabled for you to access those tools that are embedded inside of Teams, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, etc. If you want to get access to the Copilots that are available within Dynamics 365, it is a separate license that you have to get added on that we can assist you with as a partner. Yeah, it's definitely going to be both, where Microsoft Copilot will be available within a number of different Microsoft services. But then it'll also be standalone in some ways when you're working with just a general chat interface or like a dialogue interface. So it's important to understand that there's really two ways that Copilot is being used. One is to develop a natural language interface for you to work with applications where I can say, what's the inventory of my product 123 at my warehouse 1 location? And it'll be able to give you that information back in really a natural language sort of environment. So a dialogue typically that you would see like with, let's say, like an Alexa app or a Siri or something like that. But there's another use of Copilot that's being leveraged that is actually taking your business data or just data in general and working with the LLM to provide feedback to you in kind of a non-natural language way to get insights on what the next step should be performed in a process. So for example, like in a inside of Dynamics 365 Business Central, you have a tool that exists that allows you to take a product and you can generate a marketing description based on all the attributes and all of the inventory that's available, maybe the variants that are available, and it will generate a marketing text for you that you can use on your e-commerce sites. You can tweak the text to say that this would be more friendly or maybe more formal or more neutral or direct, or should it be longer or more short? You can really tweak the text in that way, but you're not working necessarily with a natural language interface. This is more predefined capabilities that Copilot is enabling for us. So it's important to differentiate kind of in the ways that it's going to be used in the future. There's definitely going to be both. This is a great question. So definitely today, we're seeing a lot of benefits from Copilot from a financial perspective. Being able to perform the automated bank reconciliation using Copilot, or to be able to analyze data inside of Business Central in this natural language format, that is definitely a great way that we're getting insights on the data. But what's going to be different as we move into the future is that we're going to actually have Copilot driving processes for us. So rather than just getting the insights of if inventory is available to fulfill a specific customer order, instead we're going to be able to understand if it's available and then tell Copilot to go place an order for that customer and then send them an order confirmation. So rather than having to navigate through the system and perform these steps yourself manually, you're going to have the capability to work with a natural language interface to perform these actual processes. So it's going to make life at work much, much easier and actually more enjoyable. As Microsoft likes to say, doing much more with less. Yeah, really, Microsoft Copilot today is exclusively used inside of the Microsoft ecosystem. But there is a tool available called Copilot Studio that allows you to work with some of the other applications that are out there in the Power Platform connectors. So let's say you're using a Salesforce environment and you want that Salesforce data to then be leveraged for your Copilot chat interface that you're building, you can just easily connect in that Salesforce data using a Power Platform connector to then have that context for your Copilot to then be able to provide answers and have this natural language interface that's based on data that's external to the Microsoft platform. So while it's built natively to work inside of all of the Microsoft platform, there is this connection using Copilot Studio to ingest external data to get context for Copilot to operate. Yeah, so Copilot already today is integrated into what's called GitHub Copilot, which can be used across many different integrated development environments, any sort of text interface, as long as you're able to install the extension of GitHub Copilot. And what GitHub Copilot's able to do is you're able to describe in a natural language way what you're trying to achieve programmatically, and it will actually build that code for you using all of the repository of GitHub code as its context to create from. So you're able to say, build me a .NET web app that has a blue background on the web application, and it has a button that then allows me to take an email input and then send immediately an email using an email connector. And it will build out that whole framework for you in code that you're then able to go through and confirm that everything works as it should. Today there are inaccuracies in the platform. It's making a lot of assumptions when it's developing this code. So there is still this requirement for a pro developer to jump into it and understand, what is it trying to do and, get it to actually work. But as this continues to scale out, this is only going to become easier and easier to use, and we're going to be able to trust the results that are an output of things like GitHub Copilot in the future. So this is definitely integrated across, the development work stream, regardless of, what programming language you're working on. Yeah, the big thing about Copilot really is, you said it, the platform itself. So Copilot is built to be interoperable across the entire Microsoft stack. And it's not necessarily just supposed to be operated as a standalone process. While it can be through the renamed Bing Chat with Copilot, but today, really underneath the hood of this copilot.microsoft.com tool, it really is just ChatGPT underneath the hood. So due to this deep partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, they're actually leveraging the same large language models. So really, there's not too much of a difference as it stands today between Copilot and ChatGPT if you're using it in this public mode, not the work-enabled mode. But really the differentiator on Copilot comes when you're using this inside of your Microsoft context. That's really where you're able to gain a lot more efficiencies, and other platforms just aren't able to do that today. I think the biggest thing is really that underneath the hood today, they're all predominantly performing the same thing. Especially in relation with ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. They actually are exactly the same thing underneath the hood. But when you look at these other platforms like Gemini and some of the others like Grok that have been introduced, these are, they're differentiating themselves based on the amount of compute they can perform, the amount of parameters that these AIs are able to leverage. And so that's where you get some level of efficiency. But currently, as it stands, there's not all that much differentiating these different platforms, except for the platform in which they're operating within in terms of the context that they're able to work with. For example, working within Copilot and Microsoft 365, you have a whole lot more understanding of your actual work-related data versus using another tool. There's not as much context in that. And I think that Google, with this Gemini release, is trying to embed that into Google Workspace and leveraging the context around there. But Microsoft really is on the cutting edge of any sort of AI capabilities due to this deep partnership that they have with OpenAI today. Yeah, I would say the number one use case that we see right now is being performed in a contact center or a call center. Where instead of having to call a customer service rep to understand exactly what the status is on an order. Instead, you're able to work with a chat interface to understand exactly the details of where something may be at. Is get the tracking number for you on an associated shipment, or be able to process a return or a refund against an order. So it's definitely one of the biggest use cases that we see right now. In the future, there's going to be many opportunities to create efficiencies and automation across all the roles that we see today. Whether that's a warehouse manager who's releasing work down to the warehouse for their workers to pick, pack, and ship product,